America has viewed China as an emerging global power and strategic rival for years. And here to discuss how Western companies can shore up their business in the face of challenges posed by China is Amy Karam, author of the book, The China Factor. Thanks for joining us, Amy.
Oh, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the big picture. President Trump is taking a protectionist approach, causing increasing friction with China. Now, you said the U.S. should take a quote-unquote cooperative approach. What do you mean by this?
So the protectionist reaction is understandable and often taken by certain nations when they feel threatened. Let me just step back a little bit and explain how we got to this place. I think with the G7 and the strength of the West and Western economies, they were able to encourage developing markets to grow. Thus, the rapid growth of China and India in recent years. And with this growth, there's become a power shift. And so the cooperative spirit is being checked, if you will, because countries like the U.S. and Canada and Western European countries are feeling that they don't have that influence anymore because China, for example, has grown 7 to 9% over the last few years. And so what happens is there's a protectionist reaction in that they want to just hold down the fort. They want to start playing hardball. They want to become more competitive. They want to do all the manufacturing at home. People are complaining that they want their jobs back. Manufacturing is suffering in this country. And in fact, that was a big reason why President Trump was elected, because the people wanted that kind of change and they wanted the status quo to be reinstated. And he promised that. So then, given the factors you just mentioned, how do we practice co-opetition given, existing interdependencies between China and the U.S.? That's exactly why we need to practice it. So the problem with protectionism is that we're too dependent on other nations. All nations are dependent on each other. And China gets this. China knows that they can't shut out the US of A. I mean, it's one of their #1 markets, if not the #1 market. And so because of the interdependencies, because we're so intertwined, we can't take that approach, and co-opetition is really the way to go. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of patience, and it takes reciprocity. I'm not saying that either nation or any of the nations are going to be really great at it, but at the end of the day, there are supply chain efficiencies to be gained from overseas, and there's market access questions that need to be addressed. The U.S., Canada, Western Europe, other Western countries, they really want to be in China. That's 1.4 billion customers for them to have, and we're seeing this cooperative approach being taken these days with U.S. companies adhering to some of the Chinese government's rules and regulations and policies for them to be able to be there. And that's a big contentious issue as well.
In a nutshell, what other advice might you recommend to Western-based companies seeking to remain competitive given the challenges faced or posed by China?
I think the big message really is we need to change. We can't just keep focusing on being the best as we have been in decades gone by. It's a new world order, and the playing field has changed, and the players are, they play by different rules. And so we need to learn how to adapt. We need to learn how to do business differently. We need to acknowledge that emerging markets is no longer a novelty, but a necessity. So in the case of high tech, for example, product superiority is not the winning factor anymore, or is not the landslide, home run. I think, having spent 15 years in Silicon Valley, it really was, my product is better than his product, and so my product's going to win the business, and I'm going to spend a lot of time in the lab and doing R&D and making this really perfect product. But that's not the name of the game anymore, right? There's elements like pricing, there's financing, and then let us not forget the big P, politics. right? We talk about the usual P's, product, price, place, promotion, but politics is huge. And we need to get smarter about using politics in an ethical way within our own boundaries. But that's another key differentiator of the Chinese as they go abroad. They deal from, government to government, and they do the influencing from the top down. And the question is, well, how much are Western governments doing in that similar context to help companies in their global expansion activities? And so I term this in terms of, let us change from being the best to wanting to be better. And by being better, we can stay ahead of the curve.
Great. Well, Amy Karam, author of The China Factor, thank you so much for joining us and lending us your insight.
Thanks, JP. I had a nice time.